Welcome to Sea of Savage. The sea holds its secrets close, wrapped in salt and shadow. Tonight, the tide brings three incredible tales, whispered across decks, hauled up from the deepest parts of memory. We call them yarns because the line between honest truth and the delirium of a weary man is nearly impossible to chart. Do you believe? Or is it merely sailor's yarn? If you are seeking the truth behind the waves, subscribe. Join the Sea of Savage for more sailor's yarn and breathtaking footage of the ocean's raw power.
The name's Elias, the Calm. They call me that because sorrow teaches a man to breathe slow, and my voice, well, it carries the deep sound of the tide turnin'. This be the tale of the one thing I ever caught that I knew, truly knew, held the answer to my weary life, and let slide through my own hands. It happened off the banks of Newfoundland, deep in the dark. We were trawling, and the fog had knitted itself so thick you couldn't see the bowsprit, just the greasy sheen of the deck lights. The air was cold enough to crack a man's teeth. I was on the winch when the net hauled up. Heavy it was, not with fish, but with the cold, dead weight of the deep. We dumped the catch, and amidst the scuttling silver and black haddock, there was a light. Not fire, not bioluminescence, but a sphere of pure, shivering blue, the color of ice just before it melts. It pulsed slow, measured, like a heart trying to remember how to beat. I cleared the debris around it, and there it sat. It wasn't organic, not quite. It looked like ancient glass, maybe, or a jewel that had been tumbled by currents for 1,000 years. It gave off no heat, only cold. But when I drew close, the melancholy in my own chest seemed to lighten. It felt like the core of all quiet things, a tiny sun that knew only stillness. The crew was clamoring, shouting about fortune and how much the captain would pay, but I heard none of it. I reached down, my hands roughed as sandpaper, and cupped the light. It didn't burn, but it whispered, not in my ears, but right in the deep pocket of my quiet dread. It promised peace, the kind you can only find beneath the waves. I stood there, breathing slow, contemplating the cold fortune. If I kept it, I'd be rich, or maybe just obsessed. I hesitated, trying to measure the price of utter quiet against the necessity of life. It was that measured breath, that one moment of reflection that did it. The sphere gave one final, resonant thrum, and I felt a fraying on the edge of the net, right beneath my heavy boot. It slipped. Smooth as oiled stone, the lantern of the cold current rolled, slid through the torn weave, and sank. The light didn't fade when it hit the water. It just diminished, slowly, descending like a tear down a window pane, until the blue was swallowed by the black. And now, every long voyage, when the water gets cold and the fog is heavy, I can feel that measured thrumming beneath the keel. They say I let a fortune slip. Aye, maybe I did. But I think I let go of something far more dangerous, the chance to trade a difficult life for perfect, absolute stillness.
The name's Angus, though most just call me Cook. My kitchen is the heart of any vessel, and I'm a man of good cheer and hot stew. But even a big lad like me knows the shiver of the deep. When I speak of this voyage, listen close, for my voice may tremble a touch, and it's not just the damp sea air. This be the tale of the sea serpent and the captain who walked among us twice. We were 6 weeks out, becalmed in a wicked fog that smelled of rust and cold iron. The air was thick and every sound muffled. Our captain, Silas, was a sturdy, straight-backed man, the kind who ate his steak rare and his coffee black as pitch. The trouble started when the mate, a sober man named Finn, swore he saw Captain Silas staring into the empty fog bank at midnight, only to find the captain snoring loud as a bilge pump in his cabin 5 minutes later. I dismissed it until the galley bell rang and the captain came down for his midday meal. Silas always preferred a dash of ginger in his mutton stew, always. This day, he pushed the bowl away and asked for a plain bit of boiled fish, and his eyes, they were the same shape, same blue, but they held no warmth, like staring into polished glass. 2 days later, the real horror began. We had 2 Captain Silases. One stood stiffly on the deck, silent, barking orders that made no sense, telling the men to trim sails that weren't there, or demanding we fix holes the carpenter swore didn't exist. He smelled faintly of brine and ozone, even when dry. The other Captain Silas, the one that felt right, would sneak into the galley, complaining bitterly about the cold and asking me to reheat his coffee 4 times. He'd grip my arm, his hand clammy, whispering that he felt he was already ashore, living his life in miniature while his body walked the ship. It came to a head when the cold captain, the doppelganger, finally cornered the real Silas by the wheel. There was no fight, no shouting. The false captain just smiled, a wide, empty grin that didn't touch his eyes. "You are worn thin, Silas," the double whispered, his voice too smooth, echoing unnaturally off the spars. "I shall relieve you of your duty." The genuine captain slumped, utterly defeated, tears streaming down his face, realizing he was being replaced by a reflection made of sea shadow. Before any man could intervene, the cold Silas melted. He didn't fall, he just softened into a grayish spray, dissolving into the thick fog right where the true captain had stood a moment before. We found Silas shivering violently, clutching the wheel like a lifeline. He was safe, but forever hollowed. "That foul thing had taken a piece of him, cook, and left only the shell. Aye, when you see yourself twice on the deep, the sea always takes the warmer one. That's the rule. And now, if you'll excuse me, I need to check on the pressure in my copper kettles. Keeps the bad lookout, mostly."
The name's Hector. They call me the helmsman, and there ain't a squall alive that can shake my hand on the wheel. But a firm hand don't mean a clear mind. Say the strain around me mouth. That ain't the wind. That's the residue of a hunger I pray no man ever knows. This be the tale of what the sea demands when she finally stops giving. It was the Sea Witch at a Nantucket, and we hit a rogue shelf of ice faster than a gull stoops for bait. In the scramble, only 4 of us made it to a dinghy, a leaky basket with half a bucket of biscuits and the certainty of slow death. For 8 days, the sun was a hammer and the ocean was glass. The biscuits turned to dust and the water turned to brine in our guts. We saw ships, distant specks that never saw our flappin' rags. On the 9th morning, the cabin boy, little Finn, he just stopped breathing. He didn't fade. He snapped shut like a book finished too soon. There were 3 of us left, Old Man Thorne, Young Joe, and me. I won't detail the arguments. I won't describe the silence that followed when the decision was made. Desperation doesn't make philosophers of men. It makes butchers. We used Finn's knife, rusted by salt. It was necessary, we told ourselves. Survival is sacred. The horror wasn't the first act. It was the second, the third, and the fourth. It was the way we looked at each other afterward. The way the salt crust around our mouths seemed to hide a terrible, fresh stain. We were saved 3 days later by a packet headed for Madeira, but we were never saved from it. Old Thorn went mad first. He couldn't eat regular food. He'd sit and chew on his fingernails, whispering that Finn's eyes were watching us from the broth. Young Joe, he lasted 6 months ashore. He jumped from a lighthouse, shouting that he owed the sea a debt, demanding the gulls take him bone by bone. I'm the only one left. I can steer through a hurricane blindfolded, but I cannot shake the weight of that deed. When I stand here, steadying the helm, I feel a spectral chill against my left shoulder. It's Finn. He sails with me always, a silent partner, reminding me that though I survived the ocean, the one thing I ate was the one thing that truly devoured me. And sometimes, when the wind changes just right, I swear I can still taste the salt and the cold. The flotsam feast haunts the helmsman forever.
3 yarns spun, 3 shadows cast upon the deck. They say fiction is merely truth disguised, but at the edges of the deep, the truth is always the strangest story of them all. The ocean swallows what is convenient, leaving only the impossible. Which impossibility did the tide truly deliver? Cast your guess in the comments below. And if you seek the shadows beneath the waves, join us again. Subscribe to the Sea of Savage.